national anthem.
Got a nice.
Okay, so we are unmuted and the stream is live. And actually, Ms. Holt, I'll ask you, can you go up there and just test that again, just for the record?
Just finish the anthem.
I just want folks to know that it is in fact working.
It's working.
It is working. Thank you. Okay, perfect. It rang in over here too. So I do apologize for the technical hiccup last meeting. The receiver for that microphone was not on, but we have since marked it and reminded ourselves that it has to be turned on. So, Mr. Mayor, at your convenience, it is 6 o'clock, so
Windfall.
I'll turn the meeting over to you.
All right, well, thank you. I will now call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Thursday, February 8, 2023, to order at 6:01 p.m. If you are able, please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. To my page, Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Denning,
Here.
Ms. Fry,
Here?
Mr. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Lomach,
Yes.
Mr. Maxfield, Mayor Williams.
Here.
Move to excuse. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Joseph and a second from Mr. Denning to excuse Deputy Mayor Maxfield from tonight's meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor, but I would respectfully request that since we have guests this evening from the United Way, that we allow them to present first before we get into the department updates.
So moved, or move to approve.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as the city manager has presented with his addendum. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. And with that being said, we will move right into our United Way presentation, and I will turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite our friends from the United Way to make a presentation about all the work that they do in and around the community.
Oh, don't worry, we're going to call you up in a minute, don't worry.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm Tom Kelly, President and CEO of the United Way of the Greater Dayton Area, and I really appreciate that you invited us here this evening, give us a chance to talk to you about United Way, some of the things that we're doing in the community, and some of the things that are happening in association with Riverside. So thank you. So our United Way is, from informational standpoint, we are the United Way that serves Montgomery, Greene, and Preble counties, which means we're sort of in some ways like the Route 35 United Way. We cover everything from Eaton all the way over to Jamestown, and of course the north-south space thereof as well. But it also means that we're a United Way that serves different populations. You know, when you think about Preble County, you think about some farm country, small industrial, residential, some of the countryside in this area. You think about Greene County, you think about bedroom communities, business, hospital, territory, contractors, small business, industrial. And you think about the military base in Wright Pat that also surrounds you, that comes into Montgomery County. And then, you know, with Montgomery County, we sort of think of the urban core and the neighborhoods that feed industry, activity, business, education, all those things in Montgomery County. What it means is that as a United Way, we have to be responsive. We have to be flexible. We have to be aware of the things that affect the citizens all throughout that space, and that's what we try to do. You know, our jobs are a little bit of a challenge these days, and you all know in city government, the challenges that the pandemic left for all of us. Reaching into individuals, making reconnections, affirming what relationships look like. That's the business we are in as United Way. And United Ways thrive through things like workplace giving campaigns, working with individual donors, working throughout the community to connect people, connect other nonprofits, but most importantly, connecting with citizens who need our assistance. Our mission at United Way is to uplift the community. That's why we exist. That's why we're here. So our challenge is to be communicative. to do outreach, to provide services, and to access services that are also available through a whole network of agencies and providers throughout the entire three-county community. And there's several ways that we do that. One of the ways that we do that, which is really one of our largest service areas, is through the calling 211, what we refer to as HelpLink, and also VetsLink. So when you think about calling 211, it's a service that we provide for anyone and everyone in the community. If you have a need, if you're unsure where to turn, if you're not quite sure where to connect with the service, you can simply take your phone out and call 211. When you call that number, it will connect to our call center. And our call center operates right now on a virtual basis. We have full and part-time staff who pick up those calls 365 days a year, day and night, 24 hours a day, full coverage. And when we get those phone calls, what they do is they speak to the person on the other end of the call, but more importantly, they don't simply ask what you need, they try to help assess what you may need. Because we may get a phone call from someone who will call and say, hey, it's the third week of the month, I may have been a person who received food benefits, I'm out of food, where do I turn, where do I go? We could simply accept that question, and we could say, through our digital array of services and through map placement, you are at such and such an address, there is a food bank or a church or someone who provides meals 3 blocks away from you. But what we try to also do is drill down and understand what might the real needs of this family look like. What we may find out is this person who is calling for a meal could be a woman who has 3 kids. Asking further questions, we may find out the reason she's looking for food is because she's had to leave home because maybe she's been in a domestic violence situation. So she's had to leave, and she's had to take those 3 kids with her. So now all of a sudden, she doesn't just have a food issue, she has a housing issue, she may have an education issue for the kids, she may have a number of other support issues that are necessary to help her be on her feet, be stable, be safe, secure, and have what she needs to try to move forward. So now our 211 service is trying to patch together and provide the wraparound supports that she may need to be successful. So that's kind of the flavor of what may happen in a 211 call. As I mentioned, 211 is actually 2 different kinds of services. HelpLink is the general name for that service for any and everyone that calls. I mentioned we work intentionally with the military. We work intentionally in concert. There is also a component within HelpLink, within 211, which is named VetsLink. We started VetsLink about 5 years ago. With VetsLink, we intentionally hire veterans because they understand on a peer-to-peer basis what a military family or someone who has been a veteran may be facing. If we get a call from a veteran, if we get a call from a military family, we get someone from the military community who may be in need of service, we can attach them to one of those veterans that we've hired because they can immediately develop some sort of a bond with them. They can identify with what their issues are. They can identify with what their needs may be. They can understand how to address them and understand what they may be going through. They can then provide that similar kind of service. Well, talk to me about what your needs are. How can I help you? How can I think through that framework and that lens that's of military service, that other dynamic of how to support, how to help you, and how to move you through the things that you could be facing as barriers, and how to help you. So we're cognizant of those kinds of things, and we intentionally work in that space as well. You know, there are a host of services that we provide. We have a Strong Families program that we offer in the community. It's designed around families who have school-aged children. The first issue is to make sure that they are in safe and stable housing. So we may be identifying things like, might you need rental assistance? Might you need foreclosure prevention assistance? Our utility assistance? How do we make sure that you're in safe and stable housing? Once we identify those things, then we move on to educational supports for the children in the household. Do they have what they need to be academically successful? Are they on a path for success? because we also know that working with that next generation in the household is important to set them up for future success. Then we look at the adults in the household and talk about income viability. Are we helping them understand that perhaps patching together 2 or 3 part-time jobs may not be their solution? Can we get them into a program that provides certificates for them, further education for them, a job that may be available that helps them ramp their skills up, on-the-job training, whatever it may be to help ladder their skill sets up, or just find a job that may be able to pay them more money for the skill sets they already have. If we can do those things and wrap around them, then we can provide them with a better chance to move forward, be more self-sufficient, and in building stronger families, we then build stronger communities, stronger neighborhoods, and everyone in the region is in a better position. We work with a host of other nonprofits in the community. We are that intersect to the other nonprofits. That's sort of what United Way is. We work with anyone and everyone, and we work to make sure that we're bringing resources to the table and identifying what can work in different communities. We intentionally try to identify how do we help, how are we available, what can we do? So, I know I have a limited time this afternoon. I don't want to take all the time the council has. I know you have many things to take care of. I did bring packets for you that talk about some of the services we provide, what United Way does. I would also tell you that, when you think about that 211 service, we provide that service in more than just our 3 core counties. We actually contract to provide that service on behalf of 12 counties throughout the United Way network. We answer about 60,000 calls a year through 211 of people that are looking for immediate help. Again, we're sort of a service broker, we're a service coordinator. We are there to make sure that people can get to what they need at any given point and provide resources. Yes?
So the wraparound service that you were discussing, does that come with a case manager?
We work with case managers in the community, yes.
Okay, and is that available to everyone who expresses a need?
It's available based on referrals coming in, doing an assessment, and making sure that they fit the criteria for the program.
Okay,
If they don't fit the criteria for that program, then we also look at the other array of case management services throughout the community and identify if there's somewhere else that we may be able to place them to get the kind of help that they need. So we may work with, as an example, the Catholic Social Services, a Lutheran Social Services. Depending on how many needs they have, how complex it may be, there could be any array of things that we may pull together. The other component about United Way to think about is we are sort of the gap filler. We look and we work throughout the community to bring others together and try to assess, is there a gap that's open? Is there a need out there? How can we try to facilitate some dialogue or conversation, perhaps, about what the next iteration of services may look like? United Way is in this interesting position where we are, in fact, a standalone nonprofit that operates in the community, and we have to, provide and operate our own services. But at the same time, we're also the partner of every other nonprofit in the community. So we're balancing, well, what is it United Way does? What is it everyone else does? How do we provide other partnerships? How do we bring people together to have discussions? How do we allocate the resources that we have? How do we work with others and try to partner around other resources? How do we apply for grants? How do we move our workplace campaigns? How do we make those dollars available to work in the best interest of the community? That's, in a nutshell, that's what we do.
So being in Montgomery County, what's your relationship like with the Miami Valley Community Action Partnership? Are you often pointing people in their direction for
Yes.
those programs?
Yes, we work closely with CAP. We work with them as well as many others. So how are we providing them referrals for rental assistance, for the HEAP program, for any of those kinds of programs? And so, as an example, when there was ARPA money available in the community, other development money that may have come from the county or any of the municipalities, we would certainly be part of the partnership in moving people through those doors.
Right. So like for people to be able to, I know it's a kind of lengthy process, and especially if you're not tech savvy or, I mean, those appointments that you have to go through at the offices there to get on HEAP or PIP or any of the services that they provide is lengthy. So you offer like facilitation services to help someone in need be able to go through that process.
What may be helpful when you think about United Way and think about the 211 service, we have the ability sometimes to help answer questions for people and perhaps narrow down what the thought process is in where they need to go.
Okay.
So we can help answer some of those preliminary questions, because the people that we hire and we train, we can't become experts in everything, but we can become informed educators on many things.
Okay.
So someone may call us looking for energy assistance programming. We may be able to help cut through the first 5, 6, or 7 questions that then narrows the framework to help them get into the process faster. Or help them understand, you're going to go to CAP. Here's what they're going to ask you for. Make sure you take it on the first visit, and it will speed up your ability to get through the process. So now all of a sudden, the funnel of application isn't this big. They're down at the tip to go through. So, we do things like that through 211.
Tom, is there a way specifically that people can get involved if they want to help, if they want to be, I know when my conversation with Antoinette first began, we were talking about ways that the city could help United Way. And I know there's a number of ways that, whether it's a municipal organization or just average citizens who are already maybe supporting a nonprofit, what are ways that folks can help United Way?
So we often need volunteers for specific projects. One of the things we've been discussing lately is how can we tailor some volunteer projects perhaps to specific communities or specific target populations. So there may be an opportunity for us to have a conversation with you about perhaps there's a project in Riverside that United Way could partner on with Riverside, and we could identify volunteers and do an in-service day. I mean, it's an example.
Yeah.
Obviously, we are in the business of raising funds. So being a supporter of United Way is always an option, but it doesn't always just mean money. It could mean being a partner with us and helping us go to perhaps the contractors to the base and say, hey, we're here in support of United Way. We know they're doing fundraising campaigns. We know they're seeking new workplace giving organizations. We believe in United Way. We think they're a good partner in the community. Please consider them. There are any number of ways that we could partner on things. We could talk, we could work on advocacy together. There may be things that are needed in the community, and we can all be helpful in those things.
Absolutely. I know that I've been fortunate enough to have taken part in those workplace campaigns. I'm sure many of us have, and it's great that you can not only be a part of that solution, but you can also, in my case, I recall well that you could target some of your dollars to specific initiatives. Like I'm thinking about things in the community that matter to me, whether it was early childhood education or whether it was some of those food insecurity issues. It's great to have an organization like yours, which takes the entire kind of tapestry of folks that are trying to do their part to help in our community and pulling a lot of that together, which is not easy to do, but it's very vital. So very appreciative of that. And I think that this is great to get this update, and for us, the 7 members of council, 6 of us here tonight, to have a better idea of just what the organization does for the people in our community, so we can be better informed when we speak about things that are available to our folks that's outside of maybe what the city itself offers, because there's a phenomenal nonprofit presence in our city, and United Way is the first among equals there. So we certainly thank you for bringing this to us tonight and talking to us about it. And I want to figure out how we as a city could help more and ways that we can connect more. And I also want to say to Antoinette, who I had the pleasure of getting to know, congratulations on your retirement, which is tomorrow at 5. Tomorrow at the end of the business day, I've been told. And Antoinette, thank you for your persistence in connecting with us even through the pandemic and keeping United Way at the front of mind for us. As I was telling Tom, I became mayor, and 10 weeks later, COVID hit, and the world changed. And Antoinette still wanted to connect and figure out ways that the city and United Way could could work together, and Josh and I were able to meet with her a few months ago, and that we said, let's get you to a work session, let's talk more about what you guys can do, what you do for our community and spreading that word. But we'll miss you, and thank you for all your service to our community over the years. We really do appreciate it.
I truly, excuse me. I truly appreciate it, Peter. Thank you. And all of you for allowing us this opportunity to come out and talk about United Way and the wonderful things that we are currently doing and the wonderful things that will be to come. So I greatly appreciate it. I will remain a supporter of United Way even through my retirement. So thank you.
All right, are there any other questions for our guests from United Way?
Your website's cool. So I pulled it up. You have a thing on there that shows how many calls were made. And so in the 45424 area code, you've had in the last year 1,300 calls.
Well, that's us.
And your unmet percentage is extremely low. So this is kind of cool. Like it's viable proof that people in our community are using your services. So.
You can even look at the dashboard. Are you looking at the dashboard and putting in your particular zip code? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah.
That's a neat thing that we added to our website 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, again, that helps us tell the story of needs being met in our community for folks who maybe aren't as well-informed or aware of the things the people that are there to help them and their families, even if they don't realize it.
And that will also tell you the kinds of services that people are looking for. So, when you think about needs assessment.
that's
when you
really
think
good
about
data.
why your people are calling us, you can get that from there as well.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And Tom, again, we thank you for bringing this to us tonight. And I'm hopeful this is the beginning of a conversation in ways that we can partner and continue to support an organization that supports us and so many other communities in our region. So this is great.
Thank you. And we'd always be happy to sit down and talk about ideas, thoughts, ways we can work together.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, if there's no other questions for our guests, we'll thank them again for coming tonight. And Josh, did you have anything else for our friends?
No, just thank you very much, and I'll certainly be in touch as we go forward.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
All
time.
right.
Thank all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then, Mr. Manager, are we going to swing back to the monthly updates?
Yes, sir. I believe we'll start with the police department. Since it's listed first here on the agenda, we'll do monthly updates, and then I will pull this up. You might have to come up to the podium, Chief. Sorry to make you move. I've actually got a, hang on a minute. Oh, it would help if I'm using,
on your screen better.
help if I'm using the right, there's a clicker here I can give you too.
Thank you.
Forward and back.
Let me raise this up. It's up tall. Well, thank you for having me this evening, as always. It's my second time this month. You guys are getting tired of looking at me. So I guess what I'm basically going to do is go over last year, just give you a little recap of what we did throughout the year. Oh, it gets bigger. Awesome. So as you can see, for the last 3 years, we pretty much stayed status quo as far as cost of service at over $16,000. Obviously, during the summer months are when you're going to have the most volume of calls. So I was told that I had to go fast, so bear with me if you have any questions. Just, I guess, ask me, I guess. Incident reports. These are the reports that are taken throughout the year. We drop a lot of paper, but this year we had 4,333 calls, or that we took paper on, that we actually took reports on. So that's what this is. Once again, during the summer months are when we're doing most of the reports. This one here, just doing there because I wanted you to see how many crimes are reported. These are the FBI UCR 1 and 2s. So you're talking about the ones are homicides, rapes, robberies, assaults. The 2s are, I just want to make sure I tell you, simple assaults, fraud, drug offenses, those kind of things. And this is how many we take per month. As you can see, it's pretty extensive on those kind of those very serious calls that we have in the city. And just to point out that we only had 12 actually uses of force throughout the year. So what happens when we get something we go hands-on or have to pull out a weapon or something like that, we have the protocol where all the paperwork's filled out. The event is looked over by the supervisor, the sergeant, and then the major, and then it comes to me to sign off on that. So we only had 12 of those for the whole year, which is actually really, really good considering how many calls we have. Traffic enforcement is always big. Unfortunately, as you know, this past year, we had a lot of people that we were short-staffed, several times throughout the year. So that does work into the numbers that we have every year. One of the things I want for next year, we want to work on, maybe I want to increase that a little bit, but you can see we're pretty close in every year, the last 3 years. Once again, May, June areas are always going to be the most highest. These are the warnings, so these are those, we're making traffic stops, we're telling people, hey, slow down, don't run the stop sign, don't run the lights. We don't, normally somebody runs a light, we're gonna give them a citation, but those are like speeding, rolling through a stop sign, things like that. Those are the warnings that we give out. As you can see, pretty status quo once again for the year. OVIs are down a little bit. That's a good thing. Once again, it just fluctuates every year. All these things fluctuate every year, so it's kind of hard to say, okay, well, we're going to have 50 again next year because we don't know. We could have 60 or 70. You just don't know. Traffic accidents is a big thing because obviously we always get a heads up in the paper. It always says we have traffic intersections that are on the list that say they have the most intersections in the county. I don't really believe in that too much because of the fact that the volume of traffic that we have come through the city is astronomical. And if we only have 614 crashes in 1 year, that's actually not too bad because I've seen it as high as 762. So we've actually gone down in the last 3 years. We've actually gone down from where we were about 4 or 5 years ago. So it seems to be getting better. But you got to think same thing when you have the weather or construction, things like that always take a toll on how many accidents you're going to have. This is one of the things we always put out is I make sure that you guys know this is the intersections. As you look in 2023, there's a big drop on 35, which is a great thing because usually that's where the worst crashes are. So we're pretty happy about that one. Everything was down except for Harshman Valley kind of went up quite a bit. We're not sure why that happened, but I mean, I'm still looking into that because I asked them what it was, and we're like, we're not sure yet. So we'll have to take a look and see how that actually happened. But as you can see, most of the numbers are down, so that's a good thing. We always strive every year, and that's also one of the goals that we always talk about doing is bringing traffic accidents down by a certain percentage. It's difficult to do, but it seems like this year we kind of did. So. Detective section, throughout the year, we had 3 people, and well, we're back up to 4 now, which is really good. We're only 1 person away from having a full staff because we had a retirement last month. So we're really close to being back to full staff, but now we got the detectives back to 4. That 4th detective is doing a lot of all the cyber crimes. We have literally thousands of dollars worth of equipment that we've gotten for free from the Secret Service, and he also does all the stolen property, things like that, crimes. But as you can see, we've had quite a few auto thefts, which is very prevalent right now in Montgomery County. As you know, we've had several thousand over the year was stolen in Montgomery County. We're obviously not. 127 is just part of that number, and we do work with that task force to get out there and try to prevent those things. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff they've been working on throughout the year. This is the detective I was talking about. There's this little small office, and you really can't see it, but there's I can only tell you that the biggest towers for computers you ever seen in your life in that room is completely full, and this year, he's worked on 41 cell phones for our department, other departments, 29 data devices. You can see that there's a different array of different things he's been calling on. Unfortunately, he gets called a lot. He got called just today just to go work on one for Butler Township for a child porn case. which is a lot of stuff that he does. So, never any fun there. Computers, of course, but in 2023, our IT guy, Josh Schmidt, has helped more people and us with IT stuff than I can even imagine. He'd tell you how much he's done. But one of the things he works with Heber Heights when doing all the Motorola stuff that we have going over there. He set up all the VPN stuff for the MDTs, and just, troubleshoots all kinds of stuff. In fact, someone from here, our tech advisors actually called him the other day and said, hey, how do you do this? So we're very happy to have Detective Schmidt on our side to help us out with all these things. Records clerk, this is Ann, who works up in the front window. You can see that her numbers of course, up and down, but she goes, this past year, we had quite a few. I don't want to go all those things for you, but I can tell you this, she is a very, very busy woman at that window. And the next slide's going to show you just how busy she's gotten this year. So right there, you can show you how many phone calls that she's taken. Now, don't be wrong, there's those silly robocalls come in too, so we get a lot of those. But you can see that over 7,000 phone calls just to her, that she takes at the desk at the front. And as you can see, the numbers are up in the lobby. Over 2,000 people visited our lobby this year. Astronomical amount of people come through that door. It doesn't seem like that to us because I guess we're there, we don't pay attention to it. But it is unbelievable. When I walk by, there all the time. That foyer is full of people all the time. It's just amazing. She wanted to make sure I told you that we did she does the prep work for the year's records and storage and schedule, that stuff. She does our accounts payable as well. And training records, she takes care of those. Just a ton of stuff that she does at that window. And now here's your favorite guy, Toscani, because he's my favorite guy. I saw him today. He's hilarious. Makes me laugh every day. As you can see on his stuff, obviously I had to put a picture of the new truck. But as you can see, quite busy at the school. And by having him there, it certainly has freed up a lot of the time for the officers that are on the road, which is very, very positive. And it gives them someone there for the kids to connect with. And I just want to make sure that we go on there and tell you that he was at 66 separate events this past year. Now, we did over 100 with the department. We were over 100 events or participated in something this year. So we were out there getting after it in the community, which is very important to us. But he also made 332 school visits, and I didn't put them all put them separately, but that's how many he did for the whole year on all those different schools. That guy's busy, I got to tell you, and he does a great job, and we appreciate him. I'd love to see the charges filed go down in some of those spots because that's
Do we know what's causing that?
just a.
Like what the crime that they're being charged for is?
I can't tell you exactly. I have to get back with you on that, just to make.
I think what'll be interesting, this is his first year.
Yes.
So what'll be interesting is to see that once he gets that rapport with the kids, if those numbers come down.
Right, sure.
And so this is our year zero for this, so
Right.
this is our baseline.
And every day he's at the high school, right? Or,
Yes.
okay.
But I mean, obviously, he makes his rounds everywhere.
He
And you can see on
he
that
starts
thing,
there.
that slide there, it just say, just from September to December, he had 117 incidents and had 20 reports and 14 charges filed. So that could be from anything from a kid coming to school with a weapon, which has happened, could be a knife, no, it doesn't have to be a gun. It also could be just somebody calling in a bomb threat. Sometimes kids do that. I'm not saying it's happened, but I'm not saying it hasn't. So we have those kind of things go on. We're not saying any names. Anyway,
Sir,
yes, ma'am.
he also has a number of visits to some of the private schools.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we continue by including those in the list?
Sure.
Because I know he's making other visits other than the public
Oh,
schools.
sure. He does make his rounds. And then anytime any other school needs assistance, they call him.
What?
And so he'll show up.
Well, I understand that, but he also makes other calls at the private schools. And I
Right.
just think those numbers would add to
Okay.
justification of his job,
Sure.
which is what I'm interested in seeing it happen. And I'm
Sure.
also interested in possibility of a second person. So,
You're speaking my language, ma'am.
well, you and I have always spoken.
You gotta talk to the guy to your right, ma'am. And somebody in the school, of course.
Who?
However, I think if we added, if Tuscany could, I'm sure he has those numbers.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
Yeah, but, and they don't need to be separate. They just need to be a continuation of
Sure.
the local schools.
Absolutely. I'll get on that.
And he does other things. I mean, he's at Hope for Riverside, and he comes to
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of old people's things, too.
I would never say that, but,
I can say that, you
I
can't.
know, ma'am, you're 100% right. I would never say that, ever. I've gone crazy with the controllers. Hang on.
Oh, here.
You
Which-
helping me?
Which slide you need?
He was on property room.
I'm gonna let it, you got it?
I got you for a second.
Thank
You
you.
want to get to?
Property room.
Property,
Room. Mhm.
yeah, right
There
here.
you go.
I'm sorry I messed you up.
Oh, you know what? You threw a curveball and I missed it, apparently.
Oops, sorry, chief, here.
Here
There
we
you
go again.
That's on me. That's on me. I got
you. Property room. Danny Brody does a fantastic job in the property room, getting in stuff in and out. If you look at how many pieces we actually took in this year, I kind of wrote it down here so I wouldn't mess it up, is over 1,700 pieces of property have gone in there, processed into there. He's destroyed, that number is over 1,000, almost 1,100 pieces of property have gone out. If that picture doesn't do it any justice at all to what the property room looks like, it is very, very well taken care of.
Didn't used to be.
No, ma'am, you are correct. You're correct, ma'am.
Looks wonderful.
It does indeed. The drug box out front is just still making the rounds there at 55.5 pounds for this year. That doesn't sound like a lot, but in reality, if you think about, you're only dropping in some pills, it's not very, that doesn't seem very heavy, right? So when you get 55 pounds of that stuff, that's a lot. And so a lot of times we give those over to the DEA, thank God, so they can dispose of them, because it's very difficult to get rid of things like that ourselves. So no place wants to destroy it for you anymore. So what's our goals for this year? Okay, so I brought this handy, and I messed up all crazy today, didn't I? Anyway, so what we want to do in this coming year is we're bound and determined to work on officer wellness. And one of the things that we want to make sure that we get to is, researching a new program for mental and physical health. And this includes clinician and psychologist, peer support. There are also many apps available that connect officer to peer support teams and therapists and chaplains. And obviously will be done within confidentiality. Lexapol, which we have, which is a great tool that we use for our policy, it also is coming out with something for mental health concerns. So we're really working on that piece of where we are, because we know that our guys and gals are out there with some nonsense every day, and if we don't help them out once that's over, we're doing them a disservice for them to not doing that. I know there's another program we've got on there that's listed that our detectives are going to go out in the community, which we love to do, churches, social groups, VFW, those type of places, and give some talks regarding various crimes and how to prevent them. Obviously, those are things that happen with folks who are just as simple as someone making a phone call and saying, I'm such and such, can you give me some money? And I know that's kind of, I'm making it very vague, but that's kind of how that happens. And then you talk people into doing that who are of a little bit, who are not used to that kind of a conversation. And we know this from personal experience, because I've had it happen to, I remember as my mother years ago had it happen to her. So when someone called and talked her out of some money out of her bank account, those are the kind of things we're going to do with the detectives. Our records clerk, Ann, is working on streamlining our public records requests online and in person, and we will be also installing boxes in the lobby with request forms and officer complaint forms as well. Our IDIP STEP grant is going to go away, and this year, we're putting in for a, what they call the SHEP grant. Don't ask me what that acronym is, because I'll screw it up. But it's just it's the same type of deal, just overtime for traffic control in the high-risk areas. We tried this once before. It was in 2020, and COVID kicked us in the teeth. We want to get back into relaunching our Citizens Police Academy. We really want to get back into that and let that program take flight. It had, a couple weeks maybe, and then COVID hit, and bam, it got knocked out. So we want to make sure that we get that going back again, because I think it's important. This year, we are investing in some more equipment to make our jobs more effective and efficient. This is what they call the Trimble Forensic Quick Response. And what that is those two pieces of equipment there to reconstruct traffic crash scenes. It can also do, it can map out just any scene that you need, any kind of scene that you need to collect evidence, and there's a lot of it. This will be used to do, obviously as an evidentiary piece to any case that we can use it on. And it's our traffic recon folks are super excited about it. Use it out there on traffic crashes, and we're super excited about using it for detectives for any kind of scene that should be unfortunately, we have homicides and those kind of things that are going to be needed to collect a lot of evidence, and this will be able to help us do that, make us better. I think this is the last slide. Thank God, right? Anyway, we talked about this last meeting. We talked about the flock cameras and what they do. And so I didn't really want to put that picture on there, but it's because we didn't want anybody to see it. But we did anyway. That flock camera system is, obviously you guys know, was fully funded from the beginning from the state. The first 2 years of it. Then, of course, we just went through the whole process of doing the 5-year re-up, basically, to catch the same price. But you can see that we have 15 total cameras. In Montgomery County, we have 275 cameras in the region, and we have access to over 2,200 cameras in the area. So all over the place. So it's been used for, obviously, for the traffic crashes. It's solved some of the things that we could not see. It was there to see it for us and was able to point us in the right direction. I mean, recently we've had some even pedestrian strikes. We used it on, and it worked out very well for us to be able to find some evidence that we needed. Even ones where we're looking through those, even if there's someone that's not at fault, we still look at it to make sure of everything, all the pieces come together, even when we do that. But I want to make sure that I tell you this, that a lot of people are concerned about it being for speed or red lights, and it is not. It is only used for tracking those vehicles. You can see that what it do for a back of a vehicle. A lot of times somebody doesn't get a license plate, but they can get the color of the vehicle, they can get the model, and we can still track it down by that. And then once we get that in that area, we're pretty good at honing in on the tag itself and then getting some people of interest that we want to talk to. So overall, this flock camera system is absolutely invaluable at this point. I don't think any piece of equipment that we've ever gotten is more valuable than this, in my opinion. So I think that's all I have. I should have put thank you for having me up there. That black screen. Apparently I didn't, so I'm gonna tell you personally, thank you for having me.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time, Chief, and these numbers are very informative of what you and your team have to face on a yearly basis, and really that breaks down to a weekly and daily basis. And what I see there is you guys are very, very busy. You're a very taxed group within our city. There are needs that have to be met, and you guys are doing as much as you can with what you have, and we're certainly appreciative of that. I would just echo one of the things that Sarah said. Officer Toscani is certainly present at Stebbins every morning, and he's bouncing around. He's at many of the schools throughout the day. He also makes time to be at places like St. Helens, like East Dayton Christian, like Carroll. What sticks out to me about Nick and then other officers I've been able to observe, and it really hit home with me when I was at the homecoming parade after the rain stopped. We got to Stebbins and there's a bonfire, and all of these kids wanted to high-five Berkshire. They just wanted to be his buddy, and they remembered him from earlier in the year, or maybe the year before, when he came in and talked to different classes. He did it at St. Helens as well, talked to middle school kids about vaping, about safety online. And the kids just, they look up to him, they admire him, they want to be his friend, they want to be like him. And just from the fact that we have ambassadors in the role of law enforcement is a huge opportunity for our community to show how much we support them. And the benefit for that, in my mind, is that we have young people in our community growing up with role models right in front of them, and that are everyday people, but they're doing extraordinary things for our community. So that comes from leadership, and for that, we thank you. So I certainly, it's not lost on me as much as our resource officer does for the Mad River local schools, rightfully so, that they're also taking time to help out other students in our community, and it's just second nature. And I know the impact that it's making with our young people, because I see it with my own sons, and I saw it that night at the homecoming bonfire, that all these kids just wanted to say hi to him. They wanted a high five from him, and he was like an NFL player or something.
Yeah.
But that was because of the relationship that he built.
You're sure.
And that's the time that our officers put in with the community, and it shows. So that's something that, numbers don't always tell that story, but I want to make sure that story gets told.
And
Appreciate that, sir.
Officer Stanford's the same way.
He is.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
they love him,
Mm-hmm.
and they all want to be like him.
Yeah, they're ambassadors. I mean,
Yeah.
they're wonderful ambassadors for our community, and it's great for the kids to have those people.
Role models.
Absolutely.
Chief, the one thing I want to make sure that, at least what stood out for me, that I thought was really awesome that you put in there was your attention on mental health. Both departments. It's not an easy job. I could only imagine, I'm not a cop for a reason, I'm a firefighter for a reason, right? It wasn't in my calling. And I have the utmost respect for people who have that mental fortitude, but I could only imagine the weight
The stress.
and the stress and the things that you all deal with. So having someone at the helm who is mindful of that, taking care of yourself, your life isn't all about work, right? You have to go home after you clock out, and taking care of our officers and our firefighters with that support is wildly important. And I thank you for, you obviously cared about that enough to put it into your presentation.
Absolutely.
So thank you for your efforts on that.
Thank you.
Anything else for the chief? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And is the fire chief next?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'll turn it over to Chief Miller. I think the clicker is still up there, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to,
Might have to adjust the
bear
mic.
with me here.
Yeah. Move that. You ain't gonna move it, Warren. That's too high for you.
Chief Robbins is a lot of help. I'm sure he's been a lot of help to you.
All right, Chief, can you test that clicker real fast, just make sure it's working for you? No? Oh, yeah, all right, it did. Okay,
Okay,
take it
so,
away, sir.
Again, thanks for having us. To echo what Chief Robinson said, kind of a quick
It didn't come easily.
review. There's a packet in front of you, so you can take it home, digest it,
Tell him
and
to
then order
get
easy
in
to
the
find.
Yeah. You might need to pull that mic up, Chief, just so you know.
Take it out.
Or take it out, actually, even better.
Oh, yeah, Bob Barker.
I don't have your voice now.
Those pipes.
Not gonna sing for us.
I'll try to bump the level here,
No,
too,
a
a little bit.
We won't do that.
We just want the people at home to be able to hear you.
Yeah. So basic numbers for us, we did 3,903 EMS runs last year. 67% of those were advanced runs to where our paramedics had to do advanced level skills. We did 1,185 fire details last year, anything from auto accidents to structure fires. On a lot of those EMS calls, it does get a fire company, but it still only counts as one EMS call, so we don't bleed over between the two. So that's actual raw data that we have.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
hang on. Oh, no, hold on. That's me. I bet that's me.
I followed directions and
I know.
stuck to 10
And then I led you astray. Try again. There it goes.
I didn't do 16 like somebody. That's true.
This will all be in the minutes, too, I'm sure.
We responded out of the city 1,204 times. 1,000 of those are into the city of Dayton. And then we received mutual aid into the city 875 times. Some of those being a one alarm, which an apartment fire would count as 4 mutual aid receives because it would hit 4 other departments coming into the city. So, incidents by call types. We responded to 102 working fires last year. Unfortunately, 4 of those resulted in fatalities of Riverside residents. Overpressurizations, those are hazmat leaks, propane tanks, fuel oil tanks, things like that. EMS calls again, 3,903. The majority of the rescue calls, the 228, those are going to be auto accidents, people off the roadway, down the hill, things like that. Hazardous conditions, those are usually fuel spills, fuel oil spills. Service calls, could it be anything from a chirping smoke detector to a water leak? December, January, we're running a lot of busted pipes. Good intent calls are a lot of smoke in the area, open burns to where we'll get it as a possible house fire or a vehicle fire, and it'll end up being someone's burning off brush or a small grass fire. Then false alarms are just that, smoke detectors that go off. We get there, there's no cause for concern. Incidents by day of the week, it's not uncommon for Saturday and Sunday, not a lot of people are calling 911, not a lot of people want to go to the hospital. So we see that spike on Monday. That's pretty common across the board. Things in Riverside really pick up around 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, and it runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So our numbers in that aspect, we really mimic the police department. We get called a lot to reduce their paperwork. That was true. This is called by time of day. So you can see we generally start ramping up around 10 in the morning. We peak out around 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then we'll get our peaks later in the afternoon as well. Incident by month. One thing I did when I started here is I wanted our actual data. We were having a problem when our units are tied up on other runs. We were receiving units into the city, and we didn't know about them. We were getting no notifications or anything. So prior to the end of October, we don't have accurate run data for. So you see a spike end of October, November, December, to where December we jumped up to 703 incidents. And that includes all the mutual aid that was coming into the city. Some of it we had a first responder for, some we were tapped out and we didn't have anybody to respond. Last year, 39% of our runs were concurrent, so we had one unit on the road, then the next unit went out. A lot of times the third and the fourth right behind that. So this year, January, we did, just as a comparison, last January we were at 420 runs. This January, we're closer to 500, so we're getting actual data in now. So this time next year, we'll have a much better picture of what's going on in the city. This is our staffing and deployment model. Our approved staffing level is 10, and this is kind of the breakdown. So we staff the battalion chief, the shift commander, around the clock, so that eats up one individual. Engine 5, which is on Harshman, is staffed with 3. Medic 5 staffs with 2. Engine 6 on Spinning is staffed with 2, and then the medic unit is staffed with 2. Engine 6 will jump to the third out medic, which is Medic 7. So if we're at 10, we can keep everything in service. If we're at 9, we drop one person off of Engine 5, but everything's still in service. So after that, when we get below 9, things start falling apart pretty quick. We have cross-staffing of Engine 6 and Medic 6 with 3 people. Medic 6 is the unit that goes into Dayton most often. They shoot right down Burke Hart, or they shoot across 35, and they're into the city pretty quick. So that, every time that unit goes out, they're doing about 2,600 runs a year on that unit. It puts Engine 6 out of service. They're unstaffed until the medic unit gets back in quarters. When we drop to 7, they do the same thing, just with 2 people. With a staff unit 2, they're not available for mutual aid. So we need 3 people on our truck to leave the city. So they just go unavailable, and the CAD, our dispatch, will pull somebody else. 6, that puts both stations at cross staff. So we'll have 3 on Medic 5, 2 on Medic 6. When Engine 5 goes out, the medic's out of service. When Medic 5 goes out, the engine's out of service. So there's, a good part of the day with our call volume. Our raw numbers, it looks like we're going to be really knocking on the door to 6,000 runs this year. There's a truck sitting out of service. Our minimum manning is 5. You got some?
No.
Oh, okay. Our minimum manning's 5, and that's 2 in each firehouse, plus the battalion chief. So that's 2 cross-staff companies, and it's kind of, heavily reliant upon mutual aid coming into the city.
Where are we at? Where's your average?
Yeah, where do we find ourselves most often?
7.63 was the average for last year. So we're hovering around 2 to 3 people at Station 6. We talk about burnout, we talk about mental health.
Yeah, that's
They're-
cutting it close.
Can you go
Yeah.
back to the mutual aid received versus given slide? How do we compare with other municipalities with how much, so obviously we're giving significant more than we are receiving in mutual aid. Where do we stand at as
As far as
common?
for Montgomery County,
Yeah.
we're giving a lot, but we're actually receiving a lot. 875 calls coming into the city is a lot, and that's, again, due to our minimum manning. Our approved staffing is 8 full-timers and 3 part-time, and we'll get to that slide here in a little bit. But you can see, and that's why I wanted, so you guys have accurate data to make your decisions with. We can manage at 8. When we start dropping below 8, especially Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, a lot of times we have unmanned firehouses. So, and that's why you see that elevated mutual aid received. But we're going out of the city 1,000 times a year as well.
Right.
And
so
the
it's-
mutual aid going out, the 1,200 number, that's to any surrounding community, that's not just one.
Correct.
And the whole 875 is
Yeah.
all coming here.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So that 1250, whatever, that could be divided by 4 cities.
Yeah.
Or four different communities neighboring
Yeah,
us.
Dayton for sure.
Probably the largest
Is the
share.
largest. Then Fairborn would be second, and then Huber.
Yeah.
So, and then it mimics it. Dayton comes to us more than anyone else, then Huber, then Fairborn. So, and then we see Kettering every now and
Will you
then.
get some help from the base?
Right, Pat? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the base only has fire protection, so we'll receive an engine from the base. We see them a lot on car wrecks and stuff. And for those call types that take, when we're in cross staff, if we get a car wreck out here, one of our stations, if everybody's in quarters, one will bring an engine, one will bring a medic unit. If one of those stations is out, we bring a medic unit, and we're waiting on a mutual aid engine to get into the city. So this is our part-time roster. We have our approval. They work 24 every 6th, so we have 3 spots per day. We currently have 7 people working for us part-time. So anywhere you see an opening, it drops that number right off the top from 10 down. Most of the time, we have 2 full-timers off. So per the contract, we have 1 person on EDO, and then 1 person could be on vacation. So full-time staffing right now is usually 6. And then if we have part-timers working, that puts us 6, 7, 8, 9. So just kind of to see how that plays into our staffing model. So we lost 19 part-timers last year. So every part-timer we lost was to full-time employment elsewhere, be it a firefighter medic or a firefighter EMT. Thanks to Mr. Roush and some savvy work by Kim, we were able to raise our part-time salary to make us more competitive in the area. So we took firefighter paramedics to $19 an hour. We took firefighter EMTs to $15.25. But we're all fighting over the same pool. Cincinnati, Dayton, and Columbus, they have large turnovers too. So we're all fighting over the same few people that are getting into the field. Currently, we have 7 part-time employees working for the city. We have 16 as our maximum staffing, so we're running about 45% right now is what our staffing level is. And we spend a lot of time when we bring part-timers in, not just what April does with HR and physicals and drugs tests and Kim's staff setting them up in payroll and all of that stuff that goes on in this building. Just because they're state certified doesn't mean that we can just throw them on one of our trucks or let them start driving our ambulances. So it takes us several months to get them onboarded, and there's nowhere to hide in Riverside with our staffing numbers. This isn't a department that's running 4 on a station. This isn't a department that sleeps all night. So you're on Front Street the minute you get released, and we have to be able to rely on these people. When there's 2 or 3 people in a firehouse, we can't have a weak link. We just don't have that option. So.
You ask any business what the most costly thing is for them, a controllable cost is turnover. You can't put a number on it because it's a hard number to quantify, but that is the single most expensive thing that a business or an organization has. That's the most costly expense. You're spot on with that.
And we're no different than the police department, the road department on that. You know,
Well, you're no different than in all the other areas. I mean, I hear Greene County, they're struggling. I mean, they got 4 new fire trucks, but they don't have people to put in them. They got 4 brand-new ones they just accepted, but they don't have staff to put in 4 fire trucks.
Yeah. And that's why you're going to continue to see a rise in mutual aid given and
Yeah.
mutual aid received. The ability for everyone to have their own flourishing fire department, road department, police department, those days are behind us.
Well, we just have to work on people's attitude towards uniforms. People just, I mean, it's hard for a family to encourage one of their children to go into either one of these businesses because the respect level is just, that's why I'm glad to hear things about our school kids, but it's prevalent across this country until people start respecting the uniform. I don't care if it's a military uniform or a police uniform or whatever. Why would you encourage your child to go into that profession? And that's hitting everybody across this country. I hear the same thing in North Carolina when I talk to my nephew, who is the city commissioner.
Oh, you're right. We have really good contacts that I've been fortunate enough to make or be introduced from Mr. Roush.
I would say that, from my experience, the police and fire department here does a phenomenal job
They do.
of community outreach, connecting with the kids. I mean,
Yeah.
Pete, I mean.
That's authentic. It certainly
I mean,
is.
It's not something we're making up to make us feel better. Like, it's true that y'all do a really good job of being out in the community, being visible. I know, Mike, you never get to see it, but Santa going around the city on the fire truck. You should see it one year.
Make that a priority one year.
Some year I'll get to see that.
It's those types of things that, I mean, to
Make it
Sarah's
real.
point.
Make
to-
it real.
To put the respect in the uniform, to make people
Yeah.
look up to, that's what you should, like, when I was a kid, I looked up to cops and firefighters. And I know there's the social media and whatever, but I feel like in the most of the world, I would hope that kids still look up to people who are sworn to protect us.
In this community, I know they do. They know, because they need the police and the fire department in this community. And it's a lot of work to become a paramedic and a lot of work to become a firefighter.
I have two a niece and a nephew-in-law, and they're paramedic firefighters, and I'm telling you, the stress is unbelievable.
Yeah. in the pay, I mean, if you're going to spend that much time doing something, you'd like to sleep in your own bed at night and not
Well,
be woken
the
up 3 or 4
celebration they
times.
had over just getting mechanical, what am I trying to say? Cots.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they had a party because they got
Yeah.
mechanical, so they didn't ruin their backs.
Yeah,
But the other thing I wanted to mention is child pornography. We need to all be cognizant of that in our community. It's real. It's nothing out there that's pretend. It's real. And it's in every neighborhood. It's on my street. And it's probably on your street. So anything that you see that is out of the ordinary, you need to tell somebody. And I think the police academy startup is a great idea. And maybe that will help inspire some people to get involved officially as a profession. I'm sorry,
they'll still
Got
come
it
over to
myself.
fire.
but child pornography is real, and
So moving forward to '24, we hit the ground running this year. We're into our budget. We spent a lot of time with Kim, putting our budget together, really dialing in some numbers to do things that we can, force multipliers that I like calling them, just like the military, things that we can do, equipment we can carry to capitalize on the fact that we may have a 40 or 50% swing in daily staffing from 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. So the first one is develop sustainable funding sources for additional full-time employees. We're headed in that direction. We're pursuing grants. We're pursuing, just consolidating line items, paying off existing revenues, and some of that going to start dropping off next year. So we're getting ready to promote 3 lieutenants. The process is ongoing at this time. They're getting ready to take the written test, and then from there, it's written, assessment center, interview, and then in March 21st, I think they're getting sworn in by the board. We're going to promote 2 station captains. So we'll have 2 lieutenants and 1 station captain per station. And that station captain will be responsible for the facility, the fleet, and the personnel assigned to that station. That's going to allow me to free up my battalion chief to do more executive level things. We don't have an assistant chief in the fire department. We have a secretary, so it's me and my 3 battalion chiefs. Somebody has 2 assistant chiefs. It's fine. Increased accuracy in data collection and analytics. We have to be able to paint a good picture for you so you can make the decisions, that we need made for the city. We're very close on the data I gave you, but there's a 488 run swing in there. So we're going to get that cleaned up next year. Portable equipment acquisitions, again, force multipliers. Some things we can do with mechanical advantages with rope, winches, battery-operated tools, things like that, to take advantage of, get more out of our personnel on these incidents that we're responding to. We're increasing our training as well as our career succession planning. We ordered a medic unit last year. We're paying cash for the medic unit. This will be the first vehicle in a very long time that we're paying cash for the fire department. So we're pretty excited about that. And then we need to have serious conversations about purchasing a new piece of fire apparatus for the city. Right now, our 2 engines are 2016s. They're getting old. Our spare truck is a 2002. It's already old. And with lead times being 2 to 3 years, that's going to put our reserve piece of apparatus at 25, 26 years. So these are conversations that are going to have to take place in the first half of this year just to see, get in line for a 3-year build. So those will be all up and coming. But that's all I have. You have your packet. If you have any questions, you know where to find me or how to get a hold of me.
Is there a reason it takes 3 years to get the apparatus built?
They're,
There's just not enough people building it?
they're like everybody else. They don't have enough people working for them.
Okay.
That's where I was this
Yeah, my
morning.
friend in Greene County said it took them 4 years to get those 4 trucks.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, we'll just buy them from Greene County. They don't have people to man them anyway.
Nice.
Maybe we can get a deal. It's used.
I mean, Chief, you heard it here first. Go ahead and make some calls. That's,
I'm going to take that as approval, sir.
yeah, absolutely. Run with it. I mean, I'd hate to see him go to waste. We might as well help him out.
Different kind of mutual aid. We're going to aid you in.
They worked hard for those. They are not about to let them go.
Yeah,
All
I
it
understand
costs
that.
us is a paint job.
Thank you, sir.
All right, any questions for the chief? Well, I'm very grateful for the way you quantified a lot of what it takes for you guys to put together a month, a week, a year, and it's similar to my thoughts on our police department. You're a very taxed group within our organization, and I think it's a top responsibility for council to figure out ways that we can make your jobs protecting our citizens easier. And again, I think to echo what Zach said, having a mind towards what the toll this takes on our folks that are working these hours week after week, month after month, and being mindful of that is something that I certainly would join Zach in applauding, and anything that the 7 of us can do to support that, we will.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We're headed in that direction. I mean, Josh has a clear vision and a clear plan of where we're going to go. Kim just stands in our way sometimes, but that's a good thing.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Never reciprocated.
Thank you,
Well, and I'll just kind of piggyback too. The first thing is I do want to thank both of the chiefs for the level of detail and the data and analysis that they presented tonight. I think what you're seeing in that is a very deliberate effort for us to do this kind of thing more often. Because we need, as Chief said, we intend to get you this kind of data because it's helpful for when you are making decisions. It helps us make good recommendations to you about what we think ought to happen next. And I think also for folks out there that are watching, hopefully it provides a bit of an insight into how complex a lot of this is. It's not as simple as, a levy passes and we have money and the problem is solved. It's also not as simple as we have a whole lot of people maybe that want to be a police officer or firefighter or don't. It's a lot of things that come together that paint the picture about where we are and where the region is and where the nation is and where these services and functions are. And so I am just proud of the fact that we've got a group of folks, not only at 1791, not only in each of the fire stations, who are committed to doing the work on the front line, who put in the time, who provide that level of service, and who are the face of our community to people when they're having probably a really bad day, all the way up to the leadership level, folks who have our back when it comes to the budget and the numbers and watching these things. And that also includes, of course, Kim in finance, who helps make the whole thing go by punching the checks out. So again, thank you to everybody on the staff. I think this sets a great tone for where we've been, and we look forward to doing more of this as the years roll on. So
I don't think we've ever had reports like this in my time, this detailed and this clear of a picture. So I'm very appreciative of that.
thanks, gents. You're welcome to stick around if you'd like, but I won't hold you to it. So it's up to you. Appreciate
Well, they
it.
don't seem to be slowing down much. I don't think I've seen Chief Robinson move that fast.
Watch this.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Chief.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
We do have a slot on here for a public service update. I don't have much on that front other than to say Ms. Bartlett has separated from the organization, and we did post a public service job out earlier this week. So that's out there for anybody that's watching. We're trying to post to all the professional networks as well as just get the word out in general that we're looking for somebody to join the management team and to help kind of take the approach that you've all seen here tonight, something data-driven that kind of takes us to the next level, and that'll help us make some advancements on the public service side of our operation as well. So anyway, that's that is all out there, and if folks have questions, they can feel free to reach out to me directly as well, and I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
All right, then we'll move on to our work session items,
I will
of which we've
turn-
already covered one.
Yep, so we'll turn it over to Ms. Llewellyn for an update on Bob Childs.
Well, I did not prepare a big presentation, but I did include in each one of your seats the letters of request for donations, which I think is something that was in the handbook, that's how you're going to go forward. These, Bob Childs and the Fisher Nightingale House, these are things you've traditionally done. I have highlighted what you've given in the past. We have been a $100 sponsor, so we get a big Riverside sign at one of the holes at the Bob Childs Golf Classic. And that money is the biggest fundraiser for the Miami Valley Military Affairs Association and the President's Club of Dayton, and it does go to support local Fisher houses, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, First Sergeant's Council, and something that you guys just, I believe, first and foremost, because, you know, we are so close to the base, and we have such a connection with Wright-Pat, that this is probably one of the major reasons we have been this sponsor for this event. The second one is the Fisher Nightingale Houses. That, of course, you know, supports their compassionate care homes for veterans, military members, for those who are wounded and injured, and for family, kind of like the Ronald McDonald House for the military. Traditionally, you have supported at the brass level at $250, and what that gets the city is basically the name and our city logo. Our name appears on all printed materials associated with the event, and the logo is also on their website showing the support from the city for those homes. So that is just me letting you know, and you have traditionally done these at least every year since I've been here, so I'm sure it was since before then. We do have it budgeted, so that is pretty much it.
Okay.
And unless there are any questions, you will see resolutions authorizing these dollar amounts for these donations, unless, of course, you have a change.
Okay, any questions for the clerk? Thank you for providing these requests and giving us background on what they go to benefit. And then delinquent income tax.
Well, and then, yes, and actually more like delinquent tax collection in general, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Baker for an update on that front.
Yeah, it's actually any receivable that's delinquent, we could work with the Attorney General on. So it does require a contract, but basically, it's just us agreeing with the Ohio Attorney General that we want to release our outstanding receivables to them, and then they can collect it. It's no cost to the city. They absorb their fee by adding on 10% to what they're collecting to the individual. The benefit is that they have a higher percentage of collection because they can take state tax refunds or federal tax refunds or any other type of state monies that someone might be getting. What we're really looking for, though, is a way for us to get our delinquent income tax. Right now, CCA works on that, and they've done a pretty good job. But at some point, we need to take the old things off their list and start the process of just being done with them. So with the Attorney General, we can tell them how long we want to collect, up to 10 years. And we would tell them which things we want them to collect and which things we don't. But when we sign up for the program, we would tell them the types of receivables. And at this point, the only thing I know for sure is income tax delinquent payables.
Things like property tax that are outstanding, usually the treasurer's office will go about collections of that kind of stuff on their own. This is just another vehicle for us to be sure that money that's owed to the city is referred to an agency that has a lot more resources than we do to help ensure that we get those collections. So I believe this requires a resolution. I don't want to preempt whatever you were going to say too, sorry.
I drew up legislation as a resolution. Our code actually says we already do this. But we, as far as I can tell, have never signed a contract with the Attorney General, and that's what they're confirming. But in code, it says that that's where we send our delinquent income tax receivables.
So there need to be an action by us.
Yeah, so we'll bring you a resolution that basically formalizes what we're saying we're doing in our code and gives us the green light to go ahead and sign a contract with the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So that'll be the next step on
Are there
this one.
questions about the income tax delinquent
How much
proposal?
how much bad debt do we have on our books?
I don't have a good number right now. I could research. CCA manages all of our accounts for us. I do know that last year we did collect a fair amount of delinquent taxes, but they assured me that it wasn't going to affect what our revenues this year were going to be, that we were still going to be pretty consistent with what we collected last year. So that tells me that anything that is delinquent is probably going to stay. I've looked at some older reports that are available internally here, and I can see some things that are well beyond 20 years. However, we can't go after someone if it's over 3 years old. So we really need to get caught up so
Right.
that we're able to collect collect in a timely manner so that we're still able to do that.
Yeah, because I think from what I'm hearing, CCA doesn't have the ability to wage garnish, or not wage garnish, I guess refund garnish.
Well, CCA also, the way we're structured with them is they get a percentage of everything they collect. With the Attorney General, we would get everything that's ours, and they would just add their fee on top of it and keep that part of it.
But does the Attorney General have added tools to be able to collect?
Yes,
With
because they're
the
able to
agency.
tap into other, so with property tax, the reason that's pretty consistent is because if someone sells their property, they have to pay off that debt first.
Right.
But with income tax, there's really no recourse. They can just leave the city and we don't hear from them. But if it's with the Attorney General, if they do anything in Ohio, it's flagged.
Right.
Yeah, the lien
Right.
follows the individual.
Yeah, so we can go after their state if they get a tax return from the state of Ohio.
Or they try to file another type of license, or if they try to do business with the state or go through a process where they have to register, that would pop up as needing to be cleared before they could do it.
Yeah, so I see this being a much more efficient way that we're going to assure that we're going to get our money one way or the other.
Yep,
I think before it just kind of was gone.
right.
Yes.
Any other questions about the tax delinquent program? I think we'll see a resolution then.
Mhm.
All right, and we'll move along to Springfield Street TIF.
So I'll turn it over to Ms. Holt. I think she might have put the clicker up there somewhere. Do you have it? Okay. And bear with me here, Naya. I have so many screens now that I struggle to remember what buttons to actually press, which I know, shocker, for me. All right, let's do this. Okay.
I just want to take a step back before we talk about the Springfield TIF and talk about TIFs, or tax increment financing districts in general. So what these districts are taking the difference between the set property tax amount that is on a property and any development that happens, the difference in that tax revenue that's generated when that development happens. So I have a little chart here that you can kind of see what's generated when that TIF district is created and that change over time, and that is what's put into a fund that can be used for different projects. Those projects are pretty set by, of course, laws, but that is what a TIF district is. Only the taxes that are generated when that district is set can be used and put into that fund. Now, that does not reduce the existing property tax revenues or affect any of the other tax-generating districts. So that would be libraries, schools, for example. Those are not affected by those. But giving a set rate, say if we go 75% of that district or 50, we do have to consult that school district. So why do we establish TIF districts? It's a great way for our communities to address underdeveloped areas or to work with vacant properties and put them back into productive use and create new revenue streams for infrastructure projects. Streets are very important to our community. Getting them repaired. So it's a fund that we can pull from, but it can also be used for any of these other uses, property acquisition, to do studies, to see what is the best use for that area, site preparation, so that if a developer comes in, it's shovel-ready. So that is one reason that we would establish a TIF district. We have a few in our area. I'm not sure if you can see on the map. There is a few, but I'll make sure you can see them this way. One is the Brantwood TIF District, one, and that was established back in 2011. And then the second one was established a year later. And the most recent one that we have is the Burkhart, TIF District, which is in the southern part of our city.
Is the,
Yep, New Kruger.
is
Mhm,
one of the
yeah.
Brantwood ones include the parcel that's currently for sale, the farm?
No, it would not include that.
Didn't we have one for the Airway Woodman?
We did, that expired.
Okay.
Yeah, so any of the ones that are expired, such as the Springfield one, is not on this map.
Okay.
Yeah. So going on to this map, I know you all have a copy, or should, we can get one for Councilman Brown if you don't already have one, of our land use plan. This map is in there, and you can see all of these key development areas, including the Springfield street. So we want to include new TIF districts in these key development areas in order to encourage and incentivize development in the areas that have already been identified through that extensive land use planning process. So we already have some that have overlapped those key areas, such as the Woodman-Burkhart TIF district, but we can, as a local government, establish more. So that is our recommendation, to establish additional TIF districts which support those focus areas in our comprehensive plan. So that's all I have, short and sweet. Any questions?
I know we've talked about, Naya, if you don't mind, just
Yeah.
touching briefly on, obviously, the Springfield Street corridor.
Yes,
Can you
that's the
flash
first
back
one.
to the previous slide here real quick?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the first one we want to start.
Right. Can you talk about maybe some other parts of town that might be ripe? It's basically everywhere that there's a circle here.
Yeah,
might
there's a
be good
circle
area.
or one of those pink lines that are established.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that could include
That could include.
parts of Valley Street,
Yes.
Linden.
Yes,
Okay.
Linden, more, we could also extend those districts, so even going up to Valley, like you said, Linden, other sections of Burkhart, putting the Airway Woodman back
That's
into play.
Not mine, though.
Yeah,
I'm just
So.
outside of it.
Drew your line a little bit like further on Harshman to the right, so I think I'm gonna be in your TIF district.
We got
Like
to
two away from
tip
the-
this guy.
Like two down from the street, so I think I'm gonna be in a TIF.
So if we established a TIF district like tomorrow at one of the areas that's in the circle, it wouldn't necessarily mean development's going to happen the day after that, but it
No.
would also, the whole point of it is to establish a baseline for the property tax recovered currently, and then there'll be a new threshold built when improvements occur, that
Mhm.
a developer would be able to have a high level of surety that there's going to be a TIF fund, or the fund that would be available when they do improvements to support some of those infrastructure changes we might want to use for redevelopment options.
that's right. And we could also enter into a development agreement. That's another
Mhm.
option with that developer that incentivizes that development even more.
Yeah, so I think what I would want, maybe folks who were watching or observing some of the things on the map, if the council, and Josh, reel me in, as you often say, if the council does decide to, on the recommendation of Naya, start looking at TIF districts in some of those areas, that doesn't mean that we are all of a sudden have a development ready or developer ready for that area. That just means that we are putting in place the infrastructure on the tools on the financial side and on the tax collection side that would make it easier to develop that area, or redevelop in this case. Is that pretty accurate?
That's correct, and I think that actually tees up an important point too that we ought to make here as well, which is that I think there are two real key reasons why we're kind of teeing this conversation up for you all now. The first is that we have some guidance from the land use plan about where reinvestment is most ripe in the community. And so part of the strategy about attracting redevelopment to some of these areas is to put these kind of incentive layers in place so that they're already there. And that way we're ahead of the game in the sense that if council is comfortable with a certain level of TIF incentive, and we've already established, council's already said, well, we're not going to do any more than, let's say, 50% over 15 years inside this district. It preempts a conversation with the developer in the sense that if we wait and a developer comes in and says, well, I want 100% for 30 years, well, it's too bad because we can only give you 15% over 10 in this area. You know what I mean? So it is a way of kind of establishing a foundation for those conversations to start, rather than having a developer come ask for a whole bunch, and then we have to,
Reel back.
yeah, or basically wiggle around that as part of a negotiation.
Or ad hoc each one.
Correct. And so then I think in the sense that the two-prong thing is just that it's a way for us to continue to grow into the land use plan, and at the same time, turn our development face out to, applicants, businesses, the development community, and say, we're open for business, and these are the kinds of incentives that council has some comfort entertaining. And it gives them a sense about what they should start to think about in terms of planning out their costs and things that they may be able to offset, new roads, new water pipes, those kinds of things, when they're thinking about what is in their wheelhouse to redevelop.
No. We have a process we just build out for someone if they want to go beyond what we're proposing to do ourselves, for developers to come in and ask for TIF funding, right? Is that not what we?
Well, right now, if a developer comes in and they want to do a project inside one of the TIF districts we've already established, really the only one where that could happen right now, my understanding, is the one where the new Kroger is at Woodman and Burkhardt, because that district is bigger than just the Kroger. So if some of those businesses around there that are inside the district become redeveloped, then the property tax increment can be applied to the fund that's already there. If somebody came in with a big project and wanted to kind of negotiate, we already have the fund there in place to be able to use as a jumping off point. If it's in another part of town, we're starting over from scratch, where a developer we're basically saying, okay, where do you want to start? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, what rate? And so we don't have quite that same framework that we do in the Woodman Burkhardt area. Did I understand your question right? I know.
Yeah, I mean, we just went through something similar to this.
That was a
with another
CRA.
developer.
That was the
CRA.
CRA, yep.
Yeah.
CRA,
Yeah,
TIF.
but they're similar tools, similar tools.
Yes.
Right.
So-
Yeah. And-
So would we set this up, okay, so we set up a 15-year
Lots of
TIF,
acronyms.
but a developer doesn't come in for 5 years.
And that's okay.
Can we set it up so that the clock doesn't start until, or is it a
Improvements are
15-year,
made.
and if they don't get in until the 12th year, they've only got 3 years?
Well, and I say that's okay because we can set these TIFs and use the funding for other projects in those areas to retain the jobs that are there, whether that's putting in sidewalks to support the business that are there, or other infrastructure projects if they need to upgrade the bus stop so that workers can come to those businesses, or there is some stormwater pipes. I know we have a fund that's coming, but those are other projects that can be used with those TIF funding.
Okay, and I get that, but I was just hoping that there was a way to, and that would be an incentive for them that, okay, yeah, we set this up in
And
2024,
prior to them
but
expiring, we
they're not
can
coming in
extend
till
them too.
We can
26.
extend and renew.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
there's-
want 15 years.
There is a mechanism to look at the timing.
Okay.
And we can get some clarity from legal about exactly how that has
I
to
was just
go.
Yeah.
curious if it was a
But-
possibility.
Can we have just a short discussion about when we wouldn't want to use a TIF? Because I think sometimes when we talk about them like they're always great. They're not always great.
Right.
And so if we could just put some, this is when it's good, this is where we might be getting into some gray area, and this is where we might not want to do a TIF.
Yeah, and that's always a discussion when you look at the project, what is it bringing to the city? Is it bringing an increase of jobs? Is it actually the housing type that's coming in? Is it affordable housing? Because that's something that is coming from actually the state level. They clearly say that the housing types that's coming in, it has to be in these parameters. So you don't want to give a TIF out if it's not meeting those clear guidelines. You want to make sure that what they're bringing in is going to actually invest in your city, increase the property values and the jobs that it's creating is of value to your city. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
really touches on it. One thing that I think about is, for example, if we're doing a lot of housing
Mhm.
and we're offering a TIF for housing, that's a lot of new residents
Yes.
that are going to need our services at the same time that we're starving our first responders of those resources because we're not giving them those tax dollars, right?
Portion of them, yes.
Yeah, a portion of the new ones,
Not
yes.
all of them.
Yeah.
So,
It's not.
It's
every-
only
But I think in the sense that I see exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, you're correct in that if we're giving away 75% of all the new property tax revenues that come in, that's 75% that cannot go into the police fund or the fire fund or to the school district.
Well, to speak nothing of the other
Um,
community assets that rely on property tax, so.
Yeah.
Right, and so I think that's a fair point, which actually is something that I wanted to just build on, which is that historically, it has not been that common to give TIFs for housing.
Residential.
For residential, precisely because the property tax valuations just don't go up that high. So they end up not really justifying themselves as projects. Just as an editorialization, I think it kind of remains to be seen where that's going to go, because housing prices have been kind of all over the place the last several years. And from what I'm hearing, it's more and more common for developers nowadays to ask upfront for a TIF or a CRA for housing projects. But I think your point is well taken. And there is a threshold where TIFs don't make sense, because the level of likely property tax revenue increase is probably not enough to offset the infrastructure and the cost of what it would take to put some of these things in. On some level, that's, as Naya was saying, kind of a case-by-case thing that we as staff evaluate too when these projects and proposals start coming up, so that we can take more of a deeper dive into what is this really, and how likely is it to generate a reasonable return in the sense of an incentive like that, so.
Yeah, and
So-
similar to the process we went through with the CRA, we definitely have to have all the information, the numbers of what they're actually requesting and what they are bringing to the city, whether it's a housing project or the commercial, what they expect to invest, how much their costs are for the infrastructure they're putting in. All of that would be asked of.
so I don't know if anybody's seen a city who's went through a situation where they have a lot of interest in their city, and they're developing a whole lot. And from my understanding, like, developers, if they're getting a TIF, they might come in and do the roads, right? Like, they might pave the roads initially, but they're getting this incentive for X number of years. And then what happens then when you've just spent through this huge spurt of growth, and then that all those TIFs are starting to expire, but then also your roads are starting to crumble, and you've not built back up that coffer of money to be able to sustain the infrastructure, the additional,
The only benefit that I would point out in your scenario is that when the TIF runs out, then the municipality captures 100%
Right.
of the increase. So in theory, if I'm on the other side of that coin, I would say, yeah, that's true, but also now city, schools, library, health and human services levy, like the big four, or Sinclair, the big five we pay for in our community property taxes, you are now capturing 100% of all the improvements. So yes, the TIF fund is dried up, but now you guys have the money to do whatever it was you're going to do. So I think, but the cautionary thing, though, I think, as Brenda said, and I'll also say residential TIFs are not common for that very reason. And the biggest loser are the schools, because add 300 houses and then sell the schools, and you're going to do without 75% of the property tax, and they get two-thirds of all of their revenue, almost all of their revenue comes from property tax revenue, and you're going to take away 3/4 of that for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, and a bunch of single-family homes are being built with kids. So
That's why they often don't approve it. 'Cause
Often.
the school districts have to approve.
they only have to approve if you go above
Right.
75%, though. all you have to do is inform them. You don't have to get their consent. If you go above 75%, you have to have their consent. But the way that the current law is set up in Ohio, you can go up to a very, on my mind, 3/4 is a very high number. And that's the, to me, that's a cautionary tale, because you're not producing anything that will also
Make money.
give potential revenue to the city in a direct form if there's a residential TIF. But again, I'm editorializing a bit. And there's communities that have over-TIFed, and they've paid for it. Because the needs outstrip the resources, and the needs they don't stop.
Right.
And then you have to, in Zach's scenario, you have to be all the way caught up on year 16 if it's a 15-year TIF, or year 21 if it's a 20-year
That's what I
TIF.
was saying, I mean, there's, in the simplest terms, there's development, and then there's smart development. And it seems like where the city is just very heavily advocating for is smart development, not just blanket.
Well, and actually, that's kind of where I figured we would want to leave the conversation for tonight, because I don't want to set an unrealistic expectation or indication here. We do not intend to bring you an ordinance with 8 TIFs in it. We're going to be very strategic about where we think this makes the most sense, given the land use plan. You know, candidly, off the top of my head right now, the Springfield Street corridor is probably the place that we're going to start, because it's not very residential. A lot of the parcels, even parcels that we own as the city, are commercial or could be used for commercial purposes, and it lines up with all the road work that we're doing, the Safe Streets for All. There's a lot of wind in those sails. So we're going to give some thought to where these districts might make the most sense and what level of subsidy might make the most sense given where we're at. And then we'll be back in touch with you one at a time to digest this. So
Railroad station.
I'm not going to, well, that too, right? So we're not going to throw all this at you at once, but wanted to just set the table as far as the overall strategy. This is why these conversations will probably come up a little more often.
Yeah, and this is the next step after the land use plan, really, is now what do we do with this information, and how do we move forward on these sites?
Right.
Well, thank you, Naya. Any other questions for Naya before we move on?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nye.
And I'll be very brief with personnel manual updates and then city manager updates. So as far as personnel manual updates go, there are a couple areas of the personnel manual that tend to impact non-union folks more than folks that are represented under contract. There are 3 specific areas that we're digesting now that we're likely to bring to you at a council meeting, one of the next coming up, probably early March. One of those is tuition reimbursements. We want to be sure that we have a cap. We have more folks that are using tuition reimbursements, but we want to set a reasonable cap. If you're a non-union employee, you're eligible for X number of dollars of expenditure towards that per year, contingent on your grades. So we want to clarify some of that language. We also are talking about reducing the probationary period for non-union employees. Currently, it's a year, which can be a little bit lengthy, given how that intersects with how people are allowed to use vacation and things like that. A lot of our peer communities are at 6 months. We're likely to entertain moving most non-union folks to 6 months probation. The rules are a bit different in public safety and under some of the other contracts. So again, this is only non-union personnel that we're talking about.
And the probations, is that benefits too?
As far as,
Like, what
When they're on
constitutes
probation.
probation?
oh, so the probationary period is basically where we can, it's much easier to terminate without cause during that period. But Kim, I don't want to throw you on the spot, but there are ways that vacation, not necessarily accruals, but eligibility for those sorts of things also impact that, correct?
Well, probation doesn't necessarily affect that. We can't use vacation for 6 months unless it's approved before you come in. The year affects things such as tuition reimbursement, that's one. There are a couple things in the handbook. There are a couple things in there are almost like a circular reference, like see this area, and then it'll refer to somewhere else that says you have to be out of probation. But really, that's just the city. I don't really know why it's a year. But the biggest thing, I think, is the tuition reimbursement, and then,
Accruals are the other thing we need to look at, but.
well, accruals are the other thing we need to look at, but that's not related to the
Well,
probationary
to
period.
probation, sorry. I'm muddying the water.
Were you wanting me to talk about?
No,
accruals?
I was going to talk about that next,
Okay,
sorry.
good.
I'm preempting you.
Good.
No, but she's correct. I mean, it's things like where technically you're not supposed to use some of these leaves within your first 6 months. It
You
just gets a
accrue,
little
but
bit.
you don't-
Yeah.
You're not eligible for it.
The term is a leave usage date.
Yeah. So we will look at that. I will get some draft language in front of you as far as those go. On the accruals note, what I wanted to point out there is that we did get some compensation comparison data from, I think it was Centerville, that looked at accrual rates for leaves. So like, the number of hours per pay period that you get for vacation and sick. A lot of folks have actually indexed themselves to the state. And we're a little bit under what the state accruals are. I think that's a pretty decent policy in the sense that if the state of Ohio is giving that to state employees, a lot of other cities are following that lead. It probably makes sense to write our policies such that we just say whatever the state accruals are or what we will pay, and that kind of keeps us competitive. And then we don't have to, we reduce the risk of falling behind as that changes.
Sick and
Sick and vacation. So I'll go ahead and put some detail to that and get that all to you, just so you have some specifics about the language that we're proposing for the policy manual changes. And then I think the way we'll bring that to you is through a resolution where we just pull out those sections that are changing. I don't want to attach the whole manual, since it's not like the whole manual is changing. We'll just attach the relevant sections and then go from there. And if we need another work session or something to walk through it, happy to do that too.
the cap on tuition reimbursement, are we going above what's pre-tax? Like what you're allowed to get pre-tax a year?
I'm not sure how to answer that. We really don't have, it's pretty fuzzy right now. If you're non-union, you're eligible for tuition reimbursement as long as you make certain grades. And what we're trying to do is give some definition to that. But we can do
Yeah,
pre-post
federal-
tax and get back to you.
The pre-tax for tuition reimbursement it's $52.50. So like you can get that as a reimbursement, and then anything above that is wages. It's an
Oh,
additional-
I understand where you're
it
at.
counts
Yep.
as income.
Yep.
So the federal government kind of sets a limit, like you can get this much a year in tuition reimbursement, and then it's exceeding what they think is allowable. So that's just one, like I see that often, it's set to the federal cap, like the federal government sets the standard on how much you should get pre-tax.
Okay.
Just a thought.
No, good point. We will look at that.
And with the accruals, can we also look at, like, when you present the items, the caps, like the max balances? And like, see.
Carryover?
Yeah, I mean, if there is one. I know that's a thing that often is looked at during these reviews is not just your accrual rates, but also how much you have on the books, what do you pay out at a retirement? Because it's an ever-changing dartboard that you
Mhm.
can't ever catch, because you might have uncapped X amount of leave dollars. That amount that is outstanding on your books that can be called at any time changes every year as someone gets a raise.
Right.
So as that number goes up, as they accrue more, and as it continues to get more expensive, as the person gets more money an hour, it's always something that gives me a little bit of anxiety, just knowing there's a big amount of money one person can call due at any time.
Well, those are the kind of liabilities that we need to be paying attention to. So, yeah, we will do some homework on that and get that back in front of you. Any other questions on those items? Okay, the final thing I have is just under city manager updates, just a quick note. As we continue to try to think about how we're positioning the Wright Point buildings and the challenges and strategery involved in all of that, I've looped in, obviously the Downing Group has done some work for us over the last year as far as kind of trying to build out a pro forma, think about how to frame that conversation. One of the other needs that we have that candidly we've been deferring is some capital maintenance in these buildings. So the roofs need some attention. There are some other things that could stand to be updated. There are also various buckets of money that are out there at the state level. So for example, there's a grant out right now, I think it's the Brightening Ohio grant, that we could dip into to look at the parking lot lighting. You know, things like that. I'm under the impression that there are also grants out there that we can use, energy efficiency grants that we could use to tap into to do things like a roof replacement. Some of that is a bigger scope than what we've currently tasked the Downing Group with. And some of it, honestly, is the kind of work where if we find the right grant and we want to go chase it, if we land the grant, then we have to do the grant. And that's a whole project management challenge, right? So I've done some homework. I'm likely to issue a request for qualifications in the coming weeks for a energy efficiency, facility management, specialization firm, engineering firm, design firm, somebody that can take those bigger projects and help us land the grants and then run with them if we do get them. With the idea being that as we continue to kind of poke at this puzzle that is Right Point, we'll at least be able to represent that we're doing everything we can to go try to get money where we can get it. If we commit to living in these buildings for the foreseeable future, we will know that hopefully we have that money coming to us. If the buildings go in a different direction, we can basically represent that we're trying to get the buildings in as good a shape as possible, regardless of where other conversations go. So just a heads up that will go out. I expect that it will probably be more than a $50,000 proposal or bid when it comes in. So we will have a follow-up conversation about this once it's released and bids come in. But just wanted to let you know when you see it, that that's what that's all about, is I'm trying to find somebody that can help us run the football on these buildings. So, and that's all I have.
All right. Any questions for the city manager on his updates? Hearing none, we will move right into council member comments. And we'll start with Ms. Lomach.
I don't think I have anything other than to say I visited a very nice new business in Riverside today, across from McDonald's on Woodman Drive. Paint and dent shop where it used to be the motorcycle shop. Stop in if you have a chance. It's absolutely amazing how they've improved the inside of the building. It is gorgeous. I mean, to think of a paint shop that's gorgeous is stretching my imagination. But I was really impressed with the young man, and he is looking for he's getting a lot of business out of the housing area, the military housing area. He said those people don't like their cars to be dented up. So, but anyway, pass the word or stop in if you have 5 minutes and just say hello to him. The front door's locked for obvious reasons. So knock on the garage door if nobody answers the front door. They're in the back working. But he's anxious to get involved with the community and wanted to know, asked me a lot of questions. So stop in because he wants to make a go of it.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Brown?
No comments, Mayor.
Mr. Joseph?
Well, my husband did tell me he was going to come up here if I didn't say this. Naya, he did compliment you. Give you a 10 out of 10 on public speaking, 10 out of 10 on the tone, and would 100% listen to your TED Talk. So,
He hasn't yet?
so,
I have done a TEDx before.
okay. Well,
Yeah, you can find it. You can find it right now.
just wanted to pass along that he thought very highly of you, as do I. The feeling is mutual. Thank you for everything you do. That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, staff, for the reports they put together. I feel like this is the kind of data that not only do the seven of us really value when we make decisions based on recommendations, but having this out in the public record for people to look at and really get an idea, especially on the public safety side, public service side, the number of encounters and calls that our folks go on monthly, weekly, daily. My goodness, just looking at some of the numbers that the fire chief was presenting on time of day when they are most needed. So having folks there when they're needed is so important, but our job is to make sure that they're taken care of. So I think that we all got that message and we take that to heart, but I'm glad that we had the data presented the way we did because it's very impactful. So I know they didn't get thrown together in an afternoon, so I'm grateful that we have this, and I'm grateful that our leadership at the city level is giving these types of reports a priority for the seven of us. And I'll go on to Ms. Fry.
I can't echo those sentiments enough.
Bren and I agree on many, many things. This is just another thing that we agree 100% on.
Yes, I was so appreciative with the graphs and just the narrative that went with it, and particularly with the pointing out where there was a disparity in the data and saying we're trying to get better data.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I very much appreciate it. One more thing, I just want to say thank you to everyone that came to our February blood drive. It was our most successful blood drive, I think, in 2 years. So super, super excited at all the support, and just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Awesome. And Mr. Denning?
I've got nothing.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Lomash and a second from Mr. Joseph to adjourn at 7:55 PM. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. We are adjourned, 7:55 PM.